if you would be so kind to open the roll. Looks like a quorum to me, sir. What do you think? All right. Mr. Ryer, if you would be so generous to close the door over there. I know that there are interesting conversations in the hall, but I'm not interested. All right, the Finance Committee has a number of bills that were generously sent to us at a late hour. And Senator Hanger, if you would be so kind to take up Senate Bill 166 for Senator Black, who cannot be with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 166 deals with Department of Historic Resources. It would require them to convene a work group to study the efficiency of the process it uses to conduct federally required historic preservation reviews related to FCC applications for communication towers and related infrastructure. It has a small fiscal impact, about $12,000. I believe at this point in time we can work to minimize that cost, or perhaps they can absorb that. With that, I move that the bill be reported.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded that Senator Black's bill be reported. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone who wants to speak against the bill? If not, open the roll, please. If you would report the roll, please, sir.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Ayes 14, no 0. The bill is reported. Thank you very much. Senator Chafin, how would you like to be ever so abbreviated on Senate Bill 857?
As promised, Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully ask that the committee refer the matter to the Broadband Council, pass the bill by for the year with a letter referring it to the council.
Senator Wagner moves and Senator Hanger seconds that as a result of Senator Chafin's eloquence that Senator Bill 857 will be referred to the Broadband Commission and passed by for the year. All those in favor, please note your vote on the voting board. If you would report the vote, please, sir.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Ayes 14, no 0. The bill is passed by for the year and referred to the Broadband Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've never heard you more articulate. Next, Senator Edwards, are you here, sir? Senator Edwards, this would be a wonderful opportunity for you to replicate the eloquence of Senator Chafin.
I didn't hear that one. But
well, that's the bad news is I can get deaf really quick too.
well, it just increases the Broadband Advisory Board from 14 to 15, and the new 15 member would be one of the 13 local broadband representative of one of the 13 local broadband authorities.
You have Senate Bill 991, is that
yes,
so?
that's right. It's Senate Bill 991. It wouldn't cost a nickel. I'm not sure why it was sent to finance. And there's, if you'd like to hear 3 hours of presentation.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger, now he's found the right button.
I had the wrong button there, right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we were discussing this one, I would like to propose an amendment, and I believe Council has that amendment to change the membership slightly for legislative members.
Lisa, we'd be so generous to report the proposed amendment.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. On line 20, change the 15 to 17. On line 24, change it from 2 members of the Senate to 4 members of the Senate. So there'd be 2 House members and 2 Senate members. And then there was a technical amendment on line 31. Currently, the Secretary of Technology serves on the panel, and that position's not going to be filled. So to update that to the Secretary of Administration.
Senator Hanger moves and Senator Howell seconds the 2 substantive amendments and the technical amendment. All those in favor of adopting the amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, and the amendments are adopted. Senator Ruff, yes, sir.
I think broadband is something that we need to deal with as quickly as we can. I question why we would extend it 10 years. It seems like to me 3 or 5 years, and so I would move 3 years extension.
Is that an amendment, sir? Proposed amendment?
That is a proposed amendment.
It's been moved and seconded that the sunset provision for council be extended for 3 years? 3 years. Any discussion on that amendment? Senator Edwards, any comments? Thank you.
No.
All those in favor of adopting that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And that amendment extending the sunset for council to 3 years is adopted. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 991 as amended on 2 occasions be reported. Is any further discussion? If not, please note your vote on the board. Mr. Clerk, if you'd be so kind to report the vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 16, no zero. Congratulations.
15.
15.
Where's Saslaw? Thank you.
Thank you for your brevity, sir.
We never know where he's at, even when we see him.
Next, Senator Favola. Do you want to strike either one of those bills?
I do not, Mr. Chairman. I really like both of them. I hope you do too. Anyway, Senate Bill 80 is the School Health Advisory Board, and I just want to note that there are amendments, very simple amendments. It just adds the word state in front of state, School Health Advisory Board. It makes it clear it's the State School Health Advisory Board. So I would just ask the committee to adopt.
Senator Hanger moves and Senator Howell seconds those very technical amendments inserting the word state. All those in favor of adopting the amendments, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, and those amendments are adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this does is it sets up a state school health advisory board in the executive branch. There would be a member of the House of Delegates, a member of the Senate, and then there would be 8 other expert members from the general public. There it explains who would do the appointing, but the most important thing is, I guess, the mission of this Health Advisory Committee would be to look at issues in depth and to also look at bills that may come forward requiring our school systems to provide certain health services. And sometimes the General Assembly can benefit by knowing what's going on in other states, best practices, having some advice on whether the provision of certain health services is appropriate for a school system, and that's what this advisory board would do. They would meet.
Well, let's see if anyone
as
has any
needed.
questions. Any member of the committee have any questions? Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Favola,
Yes.
this came to us already with the
did.
contingency clause on it, because
did,
we're
sir.
showing a potential impact of up to $27,000 per year. But I was just wondering, where did this come from? Is it a group recommending this, one of the studies recommending this?
No, this bill was submitted last year. It was sent to the Legislative Joint Commission on K through 12 reform, which I serve. And I also chaired the subcommittee that studied this bill along with others. The committee came back. The committee made changes based on information we received during our deliberation and came back and said you should go forward with this bill yet again. So here it is.
So it came from a commission.
Yeah, it did, and there was pretty extensive study on it. And I just want to comment on the fiscal part. At the time we were studying this, the Department of Ed did not anticipate any fiscal impact, but their statement now, I think, is sort of a safety valve in case they're charged with doing some assignments they hadn't planned to spend money on. They want to have money for this as a backup.
Any other member of the committee have any questions? Anyone who'd like to speak in favor? Good evening. How are you today?
Just peachy.
Good.
Becky Bowers, Lanier, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I represent several health-related clients, school nurses, athletic trainers, health and PE teachers, and school counselors, in addition to the Virginia Diabetes Council, and we all support this measure.
Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, sir, and how be you?
Doing great. Thank
Good.
you. Tom Smith with the Superintendent Association, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We're in support. I served on the subcommittee with Senator Favola. Often, as you know, We will have health issues that'll come before the General Assembly that impact schools. They're often very complicated, they're legal, cost matters, and this would give an opportunity to vet those fully before they came to you. So we're in
Thank you.
support.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Anyone who has a different opinion that would have the timidity to speak against it? If not, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, Senate Bill 80 as amended is before you. It's been moved and seconded, Senate Bill 80 as amended with the fiscal contingency clause affixed to it be reported. Any discussion? Hearing none, please note your vote on the board. Report the vote, sir. Aye, 16, no, 0. The bill is reported. Well, let's see if you can bat 500.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, just recently, after session, I was informed that Senate Bill 790 was also referred to the committee. Do you want to hear it now? It's not
It
on
is
the
here
agenda.
in the breast of the committee, and we have it in front of us.
Okay, I'll go ahead then. So Senate Bill 790 just says to the Virginia Employment Commission, please study a framework for providing paid family medical leave. And my bill lays out some minimal elements that the Virginia Employment Commission should consider in establishing a proposal for a paid family medical leave. The Virginia Employment Commission would report back to the General Assembly, so no later than December 1st, 2018.
Senator Favola, how large a budget amendment did you put in for this?
The fiscal impact, I'm not sure the budget amendment, I think I put 100,000 in, I believe, and the budget impact or the fiscal impact statement says $122,680,000. I think the Virginia Employment Commission is expecting to hire consultants, but my budget submission was only 100,000.
All right, thank you very much. Any member of the committee have any questions of Senator on Senate Bill 790? If not, anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In view of the budget constraints, I would move that we continue the bill to 2019 and send a letter to the Virginia Employment Commission detailing the content of this resolution to get them to report back to us.
It's been moved and seconded that the bill be carried over to the 2019 session, but a letter be sent to the Virginia Employment Commission asking them to take a look-see at this. Any discussion on the motion? If not, make your vote known on the board, please.
Aye 16, no, 0.
Aye, 16. Congratulations. You
Thank
got
you.
unanimity.
Thank you.
All right. Is Senator Sturtevant here? Yes, sir. You had a Bill 964, sir. I'll tell you what, let's pass that one just for a minute, but how about this one on this word I can't even pronounce and don't know what it is?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is a fantastic idea that was brought to me by a constituent and my predecessor, Senator John Watkins. As Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies become more and more popular and widely used all across the world and in our country, there's a lot that we don't know about them. We don't know how they impact our markets and other currencies. And so this would simply be a study to have the State Corporation Commission to perform a study of the effects of the growth of cryptocurrencies and to report its findings to the members of the General Assembly by December 1st, 2018. And as part of that study, to determine if there is any sort of system or legislation or regulations that would be beneficial to protecting Virginians with regard to the rise of cryptocurrencies. And that's that is the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have one of those coins in your pocket so you could show me what it looks like?
Surprisingly, they don't come as a coin, as I understand it. And the mines, you're not digging in the ground either. But I think that's something that would be helpful from a study like this to help clarify a lot of those issues for many people.
Well, I don't understand why they call them coins then. Any member of the committee have any questions, Senator Sturdivant, regarding 864, which, if you need any additional information, is included on the blue sheet that staff has been so kind to distribute? Anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this unknown currency? All right, ladies and gentlemen, whatever it may be is before us. Senator Newman.
It looks like it's going to cost us a lot of money, and so I don't think we can do it this year unless the chairs think so. I would say that we pass this bill by until next year, and if we can afford it, then we do it then.
It costs 70 Bitcoins.
Well, Senator Wagner, I know you know what a financial wizard you are. How much is a Bitcoin worth right now?
Mr. Chairman, I would respond that cryptocurrency is the difference between what my wife says we have and what we actually have.
Okay. Was there?
A second.
I'm glad you didn't say this the other day. It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 864 be carried over for the years. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, please signify by your vote on the board.
Ayes 15, noes 1.
Ayes 15, noes 1. Thank you very much for bringing that to us. We're going to come back to your other bill in just a minute, if you don't mind, please. Senator Servell, are you out there somewhere?
$772.
772. Well,
Move to adopt the substitute.
it's been moved and seconded that the amendment in the nature of substitute on Senate Bill 772 be adopted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor? Now, you didn't bring a big audience with you today on this bill, did you? Okay.
I don't know if I brought anybody.
Okay, all right. All right, well then, good. We're going to give it our undivided attention.
For 30 seconds.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, this bill is the funding bill for the company's a budget amendment for what is known as the Norfolk 4. And I'm not sure if anybody's on the committee's had a chance to read the resolution, but it lays out what happened. It's pretty disgusting what these gentlemen went through. Basically, all four were coerced to confess to a rape they didn't commit by a corrupt detective who is now serving a long sentence in prison for various bribe schemes and for doing things like coercing false confessions to homicide so he could keep his homicide division job. The bill is drafted, I think, had a $3.4 million fiscal impact. I think the substitute scopes that back a bit. I know there's some concern on the committee about whether or not the legislature the Commonwealth should fund a period of time somebody's on a sex offender registry even after they're released when they're subsequently found to be completely innocent. And I know there's a policy issue in there that the committee may want to address, but this is clearly a very serious wrong that was effected upon these four men, and the state, as is our normal practice, I think, ought to compensate them in part for what happened.
Senator Servell, thank you for bringing that bill before us. And as you know, I offered an amendment in the nature of the substitute, not so much from a malicious standpoint, but it really is a bill of first impression, not as to the formula for compensating wrongfully incarcerated individuals, but it would be the first occasion that I'm aware of where we actually have provided compensation for individuals from the time that they were released from incarceration to the time that they were pardoned for potentially incidental pecuniary damages that they may have incurred during that period of time. And I just think it's an issue we might as well go ahead and address head on this year. It has a potential to create a precedent we'd have to deal with going forward. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad precedent, but I just think that we probably need to have some discussions with our friends at the other end of the Capitol to straighten out that, so. Absolutely.
When did they get out, well, maybe it's for you, when did they get out of prison initially?
I think it is recited in the text of the bill.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, habeas was in 2016, and they got full pardons in 2017. I think it was in the mid-2000s, I think.
Anybody know?
It depends.
Mr. Chairman,
05, I think.
Mr. Chairman, staff have the dates. Mr.
They were
Tice,
pardoned in March of 2017.
I have the dates of their release.
I'm sorry?
We have the dates of their release.
Well, why don't you share them with us then?
Be happy to. Mr. Tice, August 6, 2009. Mr. Wilson, September 2005. Mr. Dick, August 6, 2009. Mr. Williams, August 6, 2009.
Now, this is the question that I have, Mr. Chairman. Normally, I'm going to guess a judge ordered their release. Who ordered their release?
I think, I know some of them happened because
Our
Governor
counsel
Kane
has the answer.
granted the conditional pardons to them at some point, which I think was part of it.
Right here, I guess here's the point and the question. Generally speaking, when we've had these before, not all the time, most of the time, they've gotten these pardons by the governor while they were in prison, a complete pardon, and then they get released, and then all we're dealing with is the time that they were in prison. What is, I guess, somewhat different about this was they were out of prison for 8 years, and they had to live with that record on basically, a partial pardon? Is that what, I don't know what the hell that means, but.
Governor Kane granted them a conditional pardon. It's here on, if you want to see, it's on lines 172 to 77, where Governor Kane issued them a conditional pardon where they were released from jail, but required them to accept 20 years of parole supervision and to register as sex offenders afterwards. And then Governor McAuliffe did full absolute pardons in 2017.
That's what, Mr. Chairman, I guess that's what I'm saying. That's what differentiates this from the normal situation that we deal with. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any further questions or comments? Anybody want to speak in favor of the bill?
Chairman, quickly.
Senator Newman.
Did the substitute relieve the political subdivisions of the Commonwealth of responsibilities? Because normally what we do, as I remember, we make sure that the political subdivisions are also relieved of any responsibility. Did the substitute take care of that?
It's got conditions on it that certain releases be signed of everybody and anything if the money's accepted. But yes, it includes.
Senator Newman, I would say the overall objective is, one, to address the policy issue. Number two, to result in a comprehensive or universal settlement for all potential parties involved.
It also includes, I think, their counsel, the individual's counsel at the time, in case there's a legal malpractice issue. So it was everybody, anybody, I think.
Any further questions? If not, ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 772, amendment in the nature of a substitute, is before us.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, these people, after they got released, had to live with this record and conditions, when it turns out they probably should have never been in prison to begin with. So I move that the bill be reported.
What is before us is the substitute.
Substitute.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, it's been moved and seconded that the amendment in the nature of the substitute to Senate Bill 772 be reported. Any further discussion? If not, please note your vote on the board. If you would announce the vote, please, sir. Ayes 15, no 0. The substitute is reported, and we'll look forward to having a further conversation with you on that. Senator Newman, I believe you have an education bill, Senate Bill 738, sir. Who's?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
yeah,
sir. Senate
so,
bills, direct the committee's attention to 738, please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this bill is to set up a public education commission on the future of public education. We've been talking about doing this for a number of years, and I know Sarah has been very helpful in us dealing with issues on a year-by-year basis. This, for the first time, will give us an opportunity to look at the billions of dollars we spend toward public education in a more holistic manner. There is a budget amendment in on this, and we would hope that this would be reported, sir, and I would so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, excuse me, that Senate Bill 738 be reported. Is there any discussion? I would remind everyone that the finance contingency clause has already been put on that. Anyone who wants to speak in favor of 738? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 738? If not, if you'd make your vote known on the board. If you report it, please, sir.
I-16, no zero.
Ayes 15, no, 16, excuse me, no zero. The bill is reported. Senator Lewis, I apologize, sir. I didn't see you over there, so excuse me. Direct your attention to Senate Bill 265, I believe.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. There is a substitute, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if you all have that in front of you or not. Excuse me. Do you have the substitute, Mr. Chairman?
Senator Hanger moves and Senator Howell seconds the adoption of the amendment in the nature of a substitute, which is being distributed. All those in favor of adopting the amendment in the nature of a substitute signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed. And Senator Lewis, if you don't mind, would you tell us what your substitute is doing that the original bill was not, please, sir?
Yes, sir. It's a substantial difference from the original bill, which created a cabinet-level secretariat for coastal resiliency. This bill, after discussions with the administration and with Delegate Stolley, is a dramatically changed bill. As the members can see, it creates a special assistant position, which I think also answers some of the concerns that both chairmen of this committee had the last time we were here. And also broadens or sort of defines the ambit of authority and obligations of the special assistant to include also economic development opportunities associated with adaptation, advancement of economic expertise, specifically refers to the Commonwealth Center for Recurrent Flooding and Resiliency, which this Assembly has established, and coordinations with Go Virginia as well. So I think this sends an important message. Again, I think it is a streamlined version of the Secretariat bill, something I think the administration can live with, and again, I think answers some of the concerns I know both the chairman and perhaps some of the other members of the committee had, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any member of the committee have any questions on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to Senate Bill 265? Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You said that you thought they could live with it. Is the administration now supporting this concept?
I have not had that direct conversation with them. Delegate Stolley did. It is my understanding that they do, but I'd hesitate to actually represent that they do. But this substitute resulted from those conversations, is my understanding.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would move the financial contingency clause then.
Attorney, that sounds like hearsay to me.
And it is hearsay. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger has moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the financial contingency clause be placed on the Senate Bill 265, which is an amendment in the nature of the substitute. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify.
Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me, Senator McDougal.
Do we know how many special assistants there are to the governor?
I don't know. I know of one for workforce. That's all I know of, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions? If not, ladies and gentlemen, amendment in the nature of a substitute as amended on Senate Bill 265 is before you. It's been moved and seconded. If you would please make your votes known on the board. Report the vote, please, sir.
Ayes 14, noes 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the committee.
All right, thank you very much, Senator Lewis. We appreciate it, and that bill is reported. Senator Hanger, if you want to take the chair for just a moment, please, sir.
Okay. Senator Norman has Senate Bill 847 in front of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 847 is the Commonwealth of Virginia is designated as a Purple Heart State, And this bill directs VDOT to place and maintain signs reflecting that designation as a Purple Heart State. It does have a fiscal impact. However, the Virginia Department of Transportation, with its vast and generous resources, indicated they have the capacity to absorb it, so it would not require additional funding. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd move Senate Bill 847 be reported.
Is there a second? Second. Anyone here to speak either for or against this measure? Hearing none, is there further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, clerk, open the roll. Cast your votes. The bill is reported. Close the vote.
16-0.
The bill is reported 16-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Hanger. I'm going to let you handle all my bills from now on it. But while we're thinking about it, Senator Sturtevant, if we could call you back up, please, for Senate Bill 964. And I appreciate your courtesies in allowing us to pass that by temporarily.
The other one.
964 deals
Yes,
with
sir.
health care, does it not, sir?
It does indeed.
Okay. It's the first of several bills. You all right, sir?
I'm good.
Okay, good. I want you to be good.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the first of several bills that are dealing with health care, and I'm surprised to see so many people remaining in the committee room. I thought after the last bill on the Purple Heart State that it might thin out a little bit. But so if you would be kind enough to walk us through Senate Bill 964, sir.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, Senate Bill 964 works to address an issue that I think many of our constituents face and have expressed to us, which is the ever-rising cost of health insurance, especially monthly premiums, which have gone up and up over the last several years. What is already available on the market, but which is not available to everyone, are catastrophic health care plans, which are ACA healthcare plans, but that are only available to those who are under the age of 30 years old or who qualify for a hardship waiver, which is usually, as I understand it, an economic hardship, something along those lines. But everyone else is excluded from being able to purchase one of these catastrophic health insurance plans. And so what this bill would seek to do is to seek a state innovation waiver from the federal government to allow the sale of those catastrophic health insurance plans to anyone who wishes to purchase one in Virginia. And one of the benefits of these catastrophic plans is because they do comply with the ACA, they do cover a fair number of essential health benefits, including ambulatory patient services, emergency services, hospitalization, maternity and newborn care, several other things. But because these do not have all of the bells and whistles that a bronze, silver, or gold plan might have, they tend to have a lower monthly premium, and so they're more affordable on a monthly basis. But because they are catastrophic plans, they do have a relatively high deductible. I think it's in the $7,000 to $8,000 range. And so the idea would, by opening this up to a larger market of individuals in Virginia, I think it's fair to say that those who tend to be on the healthier side of the spectrum, I think are more likely to self-select into a plan like this, which would therefore help, on the whole, drive down costs in that individual market for the rest of the folks who are already purchasing plans within the exchanges.
As I understand it, my sophomoric impression, it's catastrophic with a high deductible.
That's exactly right.
All right. Any member of the committee have any questions of Senator Sturtevant?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Barker, thank you, sir.
Yes, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chair. After you hit the $7,350 for the current year for the deductible, what level of coverage would be provided at that time?
It would, as I understand it, would cover the essential health benefits, which are laid out under in the U.S. Code. That's why I mentioned ambulatory patient services, emergency services, hospitalization, maternity and newborn care, mental health and substance abuse, prescriptions.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, what I'm trying to get at is not which services are covered. Because you'd already addressed that. Would it provide a 100% coverage, 80% coverage above that point, or what?
Do you know, Mike?
What type of exposure would the patient still have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have that answer as I stand here
Mr.
right
Chairman, I think that depends upon, I think the health plans can answer that, but it depends upon the plan.
That's an amorphous answer I would give if I didn't know. I mean that sincerely. Mike, do you have any idea?
I'd have to double check. There could be somebody from the Bureau of Insurance here as well, but the $7,350, which is the 2018 deductible, I'm not sure. I'd have to double check to see if that's also the out-of-pocket maximum for the plans, but I think it is, so.
All right, any further questions? If not, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of Senate Bill 964? Anyone who perhaps has a very modest and timid differing opinion?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Newman.
Just briefly, I mean, this plan is not going to be for everyone, but what it is I think it's going to bend the cost curve for people who are currently going bare today. They simply can't afford any premiums. This is an opportunity to get something, and I do believe that the total amount that is of the deductible is the total amount of out of pocket cost. Also, they have to cover all the ACA items. So this one doesn't really give you relief from that. It's much more like a bronze plan, if you will. So it's just one more, I think, arrow in our quiver, and I think it's going to help a number of our guys that are in the middle class that are going to really want to try to do the right thing. So I would hope we would pass it, sir.
Thank you, Senator Newman.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have, I guess, concerns. I'm possibly going to vote for this right now, but I have a couple concerns. One, the nature of the insurance that would be offered here is provides affordability to a group that needs to be in the broader insurance pool, in my opinion, because if you only insure people who are sick and older, then you follow what I'm getting at?
Yes.
All right, yeah. Then it remains unaffordable for those who are sick and older.
That's right.
The second one, I don't quite understand the implications for it. I had a note here that you might offer a substitute. There's no substitute?
There is not a substitute.
You were thinking about a substitute.
I was thinking about one, but
okay.
not as we stand here today.
And the third issue, and this applies to the whole conversation that we've started to have, which is a good conversation, but I think needs to continue. This is one element of a larger picture of things that we need to piece together during the course of the next several weeks or months, however long it takes us to do this. But at this moment, I may vote for it just to keep it in play, recognizing that it may be premature to advance this. I initially thought we should continue to carry it over, but maybe to keep it in play right now. So that's just my comment, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you for your comments. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Senate Bill 960.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I apologize. Senator Stewart, thank you,
All the way
sir.
down here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I want to commend Senator Sturtevant for bringing this because I've got a ton of people in my district who really are struggling to pay health insurance premiums. And I concur with what Senator Hanger says to a certain extent. The problem is now is health insurances basically are almost unaffordable for everybody. And we've got to do something to help them. Our hands are tied largely by the ACA, and I think this was a really creative way of Senator Sturtevant to work within the rules to try to come up with something that can help our constituents. And so I hope everybody will support it.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Senator Stewart working with me on this and his creative ideas as well.
All right, any further questions or comments? It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 9.
Is there anybody on their hands?
Already asked. Good. It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 964 be reported as presented. If you would note your vote on the board, please. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Report the vote. 15-1. Thank you very much. Senator Donovan, I believe you have the remaining bills on the calendar, and as you are walking up there, if you would have a preference on the sequence that you would like to handle them, that is fine.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'll start on Senate Bill 844.
Senate Bill 844.
There's a
Direct the
substitute.
committee's attention to that. Yes, ma'am.
Substitute, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded that the amendment in the nature of a substitute to Senate Bill 844 be adopted. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye and no. And the amendment in the nature of the substitute is before us. If you would be kind enough to tell us what this does and if it, in fact, it differs from your original bill. I see you've got everyone all excited back there. I haven't even asked for speakers yet, and they're just hurting there. So
we're, Mr. Chairman, if you will, we're going to start at line 28, and this part of the substitute is something that Senator Reeves has contributed to the bill, and I just wanted him, I think it's a little less controversial than the first half, and I thought I'd give him a chance to tell us a little bit about it.
okay, thank you very much. Dr. Reeves, very nice to see you, sir.
I'll tell you
And what
where
is your
I'm getting,
specialty,
Mr.
sir?
Chairman. Well, being the only insurance guy, sometimes things are a little bit difficult for me. But what the second part of this bill does is it has to do with short-term limited duration insurance. And that's the gap coverage that you see. And under the current ACA, you can only do it up to 3 months, 90 days. And the administration under the current president has talked about extending that less than a year, 364 days. So basically what I've helped Saban do is bring this in the language. Now, the language itself in the bill, if you'll look at it, just says, look, if the new administration comes down, they change the regulation that allows us to go to 364 days for this short-term coverage, which still has to provide all the things it had to provide under 38.2, 34, 38, those provisions, then it will set us up in the posture to be able to do that. It says down in, I think it's 47, said the provision of this enactment shall be contingent upon the federal government regulations that are promulgated pursuant to the executive order, blah, 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 blah. So it's just putting us in that posture. My understanding and talking with Mike as well is that this is probably coming sooner than later. What was your... You have a date, potential date?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Reeves, the Bureau of Insurance originally thought that the regulations were to come down last Friday, so it technically could be any day now.
That's my section of this bill, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so Senator Reeves, as I understand the short take of it, it's a short-term health policy not to exceed 364.
Correct. We take it from 90 to 364.
Okay. Any member of the committee have any questions regarding that portion of the bill, which starts around line 28, subparagraph 2? All right. Thank you, Senator Reeves. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other part of 844 is a bill from Senator Deeds and myself, and it basically talks about participation in the individual market. And the first bill, this is different than the first bill because instead of just stating that health plans that participate with DMAS have to be in the individual marketplace. It basically says if you're in the group marketplace and you have a contract with DMAS, you need to be in the individual marketplace. We made that change because we have 2 plans that do not offer any commercial products. And so by changing the language, now there are some caveats to this in that we do have 2 health plans that pulled out of the individual marketplace, and they cannot participate unless the laws change federally, and it may be, but they cannot participate for a lockout of 5 years. But when that lockout time is observed, they would also be required to participate in the individual marketplace. This is to increase competition, as we heard the reports and testimony from the Virginians from Charlottesville who had been so hard hit by 300% increases in their premiums. So that is the nature of the bill, and I think that's what people want to speak on.
To my simple thought process, again, the lockout provision.
The lockout provision, unfortunately, is a federal and a state provision, and it says if you leave the individual marketplace, you may not reenter for 5 years. I think that was intended well. It was supposed to be a disincentive to people coming into the marketplace and leaving and rotating in and out, making people change plans frequently. It's not worked out so well, and that's why I think that there's the possibility it'll be changed. If it were state only, we would have changed it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any member of the committee have any questions of Senator Donovan regarding her portion of Senate Bill 844 along with Senator Deeds?
Yes, sir.
If not, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of that provision? I thought history was going to be made and you were going to finally say something positive, on it. Anyone who would like to say anything in opposition to the bill?
Mr. Chairman and members of the
Now
committee.
I know why they call you Dr. Doom.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm Doug Gray. I'm Executive Director of the Virginia Association of Health Plans. I would remark in regard to Senator Reeves' section of the bill, he is capturing a serious discussion about whether short-term plans can be used as a way to get outside of the individual marketplace. What you've heard and consistently throughout this session is factual reporting that the individual market and to some extent the small group market are irreparably broken. When someone cannot get a subsidy, they cannot afford their policy, period. And that's a fact. And because that's a fact, there aren't many options for you at the state level to solve the problem. And that's why people are looking at linking 4 3-month short-term plans together. Those short-term plans are exempt from all of the rules of the ACA for the most part. And under the state law, if that was permitted under these new regulations, the one thing that's in the way is there's a federal regulation that says 3-month plans cannot be renewed. If that regulation is changed, which it very well might be, you will have the ability to have a completely different set of offerings for people who cannot get a subsidy in the exchange. And those offerings could have things like health underwriting if you don't have any record of previously having coverage. If you do have a record of having coverage, you could get a policy without health underwriting. You also could have $1 million annual caps on the outlay of the plan. You could have a lifetime cap in the outlay of the plan. You could have very limited benefits in the plan. I myself have looked at a short-term plan because of a gap in coverage, and it was about $100 a month. It wasn't very expensive. Did it cover everything? No. Is it better than nothing? It might be. So that's the discussion that's taking place, and it's appropriate to be prepared for that discussion. It would create a rather perverse world, given the fact that we have a very rich ACA policy available to folks who get a subsidy, and frankly to those who can afford a very high premium. What very well might happen is you would have relatively healthy people buying short-term plans at a very low premium, and then when they get sick, having just enough coverage to make it through to the next open enrollment period, in which they would then, we would call it adverse selection because that's what it is, then sign up for an ACA policy. This is not the design of the ACA by any stretch of the imagination. But if Washington is not going to change the design of the ACA, this may be what there is. And if that's the fact, that's the fact. And you as state legislators are not in a great position frankly, to address the situation because of the federal law. And so I am saying in a positive way, Mr. Chairman, about the second section of the bill, that it's an appropriate thing to look at, given the circumstances that you face. In regard to the first section of the bill, I would go back to the beginning of my comments. I think we can all agree that the individual market is irreparably broken. And let me say that again. The individual market is irreparably broken. That means it's unaffordable for someone who doesn't get a subsidy. The reason plans left that market is because it's irreparably broken. They lost over $100 million last year, and that's why they're not in the market. To support a public policy that forces an insurer who contracts with the Commonwealth to participate in a market that is irreparably broken by the policies in Washington is not appropriate. That is not a solution that will create competition in the market, nor will it create a more affordable policy in the market. The one thing that makes a more affordable policy in the individual market right now is the fact that you can get a subsidy. That's the bottom line. This policy, if put into place, would have very, very bad effects on your current Medicaid program. You have 6 plans today. 4 of them probably can't or would be exempt from this. But then you would have 2 plans who are on a contract that is supposed to be the same as the others, but is not the same. They are required to, in essence, participate in a money-losing venture in an unrelated product. You can't really defend that as a matter of procurement, which means you would probably have to re-procure. So this would undermine the fundamentals of your program. You have gone through 2 re-procurements in the last 2 years and re-procured both the LTSS program, which is called CCC Plus, and the Medallion program. So I would express strong opposition and reservation about such a policy. It doesn't make sense in this environment. And I think we can all agree on the fundamental nature of the problem. The federal rules have created an irreparably broken market for those who don't get a subsidy. Requiring your partners in the Medicaid plans and in the state health plan to participate in it is not an appropriate thing to do. It will create a very negative set of unintended consequences. And so I would strongly encourage you not to go forward with that portion of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to be heard on Senate Bill 844, an amendment in the nature of the substitute?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Newman, yes, sir.
Doug, can I ask you a couple questions? Doug, basically, you're struggling with lines 13 through 22 generally, right? And then the B, if we ended up saying that for the state's perspective, you could be allowed back in. Hopefully, the feds will let you back in, so that what happened in Charlottesville would not continue, we would hope, right? And then we left in all the provisions of creativity outside the ACA, lines 28 through 50. That would be something that you spoke more positively about. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Newman, 28, which is number 2 through the end of the bill, I believe would be okay. I think the sections A and B would be a real problem.
Mr. Chairman, just another question, sir.
Senator Newman.
Well, Doug, I mean, if B was ever transformed into being an allowance by the state to allow insurance companies that left the market to come back, from the state's perspective, you still have to have a federal perspective on that. That also would be a productive item to allow those companies to come back and not have the 5-year lockout. Is that reasonable?
In theory, that's true, Mr. Chairman and Senator Newman.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Any member of the committee have any further questions? If not, Senator Donovan, would you and Senator Reeves like to do a brief wrap?
I'd like to follow up a little bit. I want to point out we were in session last year when we were told that the procurement for CCC Plus was untenable and nobody was going to sign up, and we were asked to draft letters to obstruct that, and everybody signed up. In fact, there were so many people who wanted to participate in our Medicaid program that there was a lawsuit because people did not get accepted into the program that wanted to get accepted into the program. we have we have spotty coverage of 2 health plans that now can participate in the individual market. We have untenable markups that really exceed explanation. And we really, I think, there are responsibilities that concur with a contract from the state that is profitable. And I understand there's concern about this, but I also understand that at some point in time, we have to hold people accountable.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, Senate Bill 844 amendment in the nature of the substitute is before you. You've heard from Senator Reeves on the second part of it, which starts on line 28, and you've heard on the first part of it where concern has been expressed on lines 13 through 22. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we report the substitute. And speaking briefly to that, I think we'll continue to work on Section 1. I hope we will. But the Section 2 is so vital to the working middle class out there that I would hope we would move forward with the substitute.
I'll second, Mr.
It's
Chairman.
been moved and seconded that amendment in the nature of substitute to Senate Bill 844 be reported. Is any further discussion? If not, you would please note your vote on the board. If you report the vote, please.
Ayes 14, noes 2.
Ayes 14, no 2. The amendment in the nature of a substitute to Senate Bill 844 is reported. What is the next one you would like to take?
Mr. Chairman, if I may just have a technical amendment to that bill and make sure that Senator Reeves is
I'm
also
sorry?
listed. If I may have just a technical amendment to that bill and have Senator Reeves listed as well. I was asking if that's possible.
One that we just
No.
passed?
Yeah, too late? Oh, well.
Senator Hanger moves and Senator Newman seconds
Sorry.
that. Oh, is that all it is?
Yeah, just, yeah.
We can take care of that.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Which of the remaining two would you like to take up?
Senate Bill 845.
Members of the committee, if you would be so kind to direct your attention to Senate Bill 845, which is generically a premium security plan. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 845 speaks directly to the concerns that have been presented by Mr. Gray and by Senator Hanger, and that is that the individual marketplace has such significant liability in chronic disease. And there is an option that states are exploring through a 1332 waiver where there's a reinsurance program where basically there is a risk pool to which those individuals are attributed, and there is a financial sharing of costs of the federal government. I will tell you that as much as I would like to proceed with this bill, I think that there are too many moving parts as we look at the individual marketplace and the healthcare costs in general, as well as Medicaid. And I would like to request that this go to the Joint Committee on HHR Oversight to be considered in response to what we accomplished this year and what we might need to do next year.
It's been moved and seconded that the bill be carried over and referred to the commission. Is there any discussions? If not, please note your vote on the board. If you'd report the vote, please, sir.
Ayes 16, noes 0.
Ayes 6. Senator Dance. No, we're on this one. I can come back to the other one if you like. If you would report the vote on Senate Bill 845, please.
Ayes 16, noes 0.
Senator Dance, did you want to go back on Senate Bill 844, ma'am? Okay. It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 844 be reconsidered. All those in favor, please note your vote. Announce the vote, please, sir.
Ayes 16, noes 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. The bill is before us for reconsideration. Is there a motion?
Move to report as amended, sir.
Is it second? Been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 844 as amended be reported. Is there any discussion? If not, as you would please note your vote on the board. If you would announce the vote, please.
Ayes 13, noes 3.
Ayes 13, no 3. Senate Bill 844 is reported. Senator Donovan, that looks like it has us down to Senate Bill 915, and I understand that Mr. Secretary would also like to speak on this. So,
Very good. Mr. Chairman, there is a substitute.
Senator Newman moves and Senator Hanger seconds that the amendment in the nature of a substitute to Senate Bill 915 be adopted. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute to Senate Bill 915 is before us.
Thank
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
Mr.
Why don't
Chairman.
you share with us in layman's terms what you're doing here?
Priority Needs Access Program is an expansion of the pre-existing 1115 that we fondly call GAP, and it provides that we include additional populations, including chronic and life-threatening illness, moderate mental illness, brain injury, and I'm sorry, brain injury is kind of covered separately, but the chronic illness, substance use disorder, and other critical needs that are that we have assessed are necessary in Virginia. It is expanded under the $1 and not the $1 to $9 Medicaid relationship. It uses a hospital contribution to fund 50% of that amount. It also reimburses the hospitals at a higher rate, 83 cents on the dollar, with critical access hospitals at 100% on the dollar for Medicaid expenses. It covers all Priority 1 waivers on the waiting list and covers a new brain injury waiver as well, so that we are meeting the needs of the individuals in Virginia that are most critical. So I would say that that is basically the bill. And I'm happy to have anybody to speak to it. I will answer questions, and then I'll have a sum up.
Any member of the committee have any questions regarding Senator Donovan and her amendment in the nature of a substitute to Senate Bill 915? All right, Mr. Secretary. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We wanted to speak. We have not had a chance to read the substitute bill, obviously, but in general, we appreciate Senator Donovan's efforts to expand coverage in Virginia, and we share that goal. We would like to point out that we currently spend $42 million of the general fund each year to provide a limited Medicaid benefit through the GAP program for 13,000 Virginians with serious mental illness. While the GAP is an important program, we can save tens of millions of general fund dollars and provide comprehensive health care to over 300,000 individuals, including those same 13,000 individuals, if we expand coverage consistent with the introduced budget. We think there's a better way, and we're willing to work with Senator Donovan on a plan that does that, and hope that conversation continues. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for being with us, and I think that you will always find that we are convivial and conversational. Thank you for being with us, sir. Anyone else who, is anyone who'd like to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to Senate Bill 915? Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm hunky-dory. Thank you.
Well, that's good. You're looking very healthy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be with you this afternoon. I wanted to express just a few comments on the bill. As we understand it, we too just got to look at the substitute, but it's consistent with the budget amendment that was related to the original legislation. So I think our comments and our numbers will be on point relative to the substitute. I'm Chris Bailey, Executive Vice President with the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association. And on behalf of the Commonwealth's hospitals and health systems, we too appreciate the goals that Senator Donovan is trying to achieve, but have concerns over the mechanism that is being deployed here. And those concerns really come down to we could do so much more for so many, for so much less, if we took advantage of other available opportunities for extending affordable coverage in a fiscally responsible way to Virginians. The numbers, in short, are as follows. Under the bill as we understand it, the people that would be newly covered would be roughly 53,500 versus 300,000 net newly covered under the introduced budget or other variations of returning Virginia's expansion-related dollars to the Commonwealth and moving forward. The federal match under the bill, as we understand it, is 50% versus 90%. 90% federal funds. There's a good chunk of Virginia resources that have been going to support the ACA, including hospital payment reductions under Medicare, and getting those back with a 90% federal match is the fiscally more prudent thing to do. So 300,000 by returning the ACA expansion dollars to the Commonwealth and moving forward with a common sense plan for the Commonwealth versus 53.5, 90% federal money versus 50% federal money. And the 50% in state resources from Virginia resources that are proposed in this bill are through a hospital assessment, as is characterized in the bill, but would function more like a tax. And a tax, by the way, that is proposing to raise out of hospitals $250 million plus, which is far in excess of what the state levies even for cigarettes or alcohol. There is $250 million probably net economic benefit from the proposed bill versus $2.5 billion in net economic investment in healthcare services under the alternatives available to the Commonwealth. So with all respect to the patron, we think there are other much more productive paths forward to achieve the goals of broader coverage, a higher value healthcare system, and improved economic returns for the Commonwealth. Those are my comments, sir.
After Senator Newman, I may have a very sophomoric question. Senator Newman.
Chris, thank you. Chris, I mean, I look through here and I don't see much that you would necessarily be opposed to on its own, right? Because you would be in favor, I suspect, of covering what would end up being all the new waiver spots. You would probably be in favor of moving the reimbursement up from 73 cents to 83 cents.
Sir.
In general, you'd be in favor of netting to the hospitals about $43 million. Generally, that would be the positive return that we would have. I imagine also the coverage that would go for mental illness, the substance disorders, which include the opioid, and the life-threatening complex chronic diseases. You would generally be in favor of all those things. But what I think I'm hearing you say, and it's perfectly fair for you to say, is that the return is not as great as Medicaid expansion, right? And Medicaid expansion does bring back $9 to $1, and that it's a greater amount of money coming back for the hospitals. Is that,
and
are all
achieves,
those
and it
items?
goes much further towards those goals, which we do support in the bill. It would do even more in terms of covering people and
Chairman,
services.
Senator Newman.
Just to be clear, so all of the items that we're trying to do for the poor safety net individuals, we all support those items. It's just that this one returns, although it returns more back to you than you put in by what we think is $43 million. It's just that basically you think that we should do it in a way that brings back more money. Is that reasonably correct?
We should do it in a way that takes advantage of federal matching resources to cover far more people and provide far more value.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Chris, I've admired you over many years. This is not a field that I work in, and I'm not a numbers guy, but on very rare occasions, I like to try to develop consensus and to work out things. And what can you suggest to me in the absence of full Medicaid expansion as perhaps a compromise that would make this bill more appealing?
Well, we presented three policy options to you and members of the committee, and shared them with Senator Donovan and others before session, that return the ACA expansion resources to the Commonwealth and provide different mechanisms for expanding coverage under waivers, and including doing something to address the reinsurance challenges and solve the individual insurance marketplace. Any one of those options, I think, are far preferable to this bill. A waiver where Virginia gets to manage the cost for the program and the services, impose the right levels of personal responsibility, I think is something that Virginia should pursue. But we should not delay the opportunity to return these resources and cover as many Virginians as possible. Those folks are getting services today. They're coming to the hospital emergency departments. They're coming to our facilities. If we can provide them affordable coverage, and we can do so in a fiscally responsible way that actually saves the general fund resources in the near term, we should do so as soon as practically possible. Is that
So,
responsive to your question, sir?
Well, I don't know what I'm talking about, so, but as I said, I'm always looking for a compromise, and while I might not substantively understand what you said, at least I was encouraged because it seemed to be a positive expression that you're willing to continue to work with Senator Donovan or whomever else may be working on this to see if we can't find some improvements short of a full Medicaid expansion as reflected in the introduced budget. So for
We're
that, I
absolutely committed to
applaud you.
continue to
and
work with the Senator Donovan and all of you all to find a path forward on this topic.
So I applaud you, and it just reaffirms the confidence that I've developed in you over these many years, so I know you won't disappoint me.
I won't, sir.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else who would? How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you, Senator, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I'm Jill Hankin from the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and I'm also here representing the Healthcare for All Virginians Coalition, which is a group of over 100 different Virginia organizations that have come together to advocate for affordable health insurance for all Virginians, especially taking advantage of the opportunity to expand the Medicaid program under the Affordable Care Act. I absolutely support the idea of broader eligibility and health services to vulnerable populations in Virginia, and Senator Donovan's bill does do some of that. However, as compared to other existing opportunities, as were just described by Mr. Bailey, this bill just does not go nearly far enough. I don't think Chris had a chance to look at the language of the substitute, but the expanded eligibility in this bill would be limited to only 20,000 more people. So if you add that to the 13,000 people currently in the GAP program, you're talking about 33,000 people versus over 300,000 individuals in Virginia who most of whom are uninsured and also need health coverage. It just doesn't go far enough. It also limits to certain categories the types of people who would qualify under this bill: people with mental illness, serious mental illness, substance abuse disorders, life-threatening conditions, chronic conditions. So that sounds like a pretty good list, but let's think about the people who would not be covered through this bill. People who suffer accidents, break a leg, break an arm, have a car accident, they wouldn't be covered. People who have flu, infections, rashes, the kinds of things that take all of us into a doctor's office from time to time. Preventive care services, which are so important. Cancer screenings. I bet a lot of the folks who are uninsured right now have cancers they don't even know about because they haven't gotten the screenings. Well, to eliminate that whole group of people who may be healthy today or may think that they're healthy today, but they actually aren't, is just inappropriate in my opinion. So Chris talked about some of the numbers, and Senator Norman, you asked about compromises. I would say we have already compromised by waiting more than 4 years in Virginia to initiate coverage for people who have very low income. We're talking about individuals with income under $16,000 a year. We're talking about families of 3 with income below $28,000 a year. These are low-income Virginians that need health care, need basic health care. So this just doesn't do it. Thank you so much.
Well, you've been a consistent and resident advocate on behalf of the constituents that you work for, and I applaud you on that. And and I respect that you feel maybe we've compromised over 4 years, but I would be very interested if you had any specific points of reaching a compromise short of full Medicaid expansion in the world of reality as it exists today.
I do believe that full Medicaid expansion gives the Commonwealth of Virginia a huge opportunity to invest the state savings that you will see in all kinds of things. Reinvest those state savings into health services, then introduce budget, put some of those savings into waiver slots, for example. Also put some money into the rainy day fund. There are many things that you can do with the savings from expansion that would move the state forward. So
I
I'm
apologize. Obviously, I was very inarticulate, and it's not uncommon. My question to you was, do you have any constructive suggestions on a compromise, recognizing that there may not be full Medicaid expansion? I understand your preference is full Medicaid expansion, but that's not the discussion we're having at the moment. And if you have a constructive suggestion that would move this along, I would embrace hearing that.
Well, I'm attempting to be constructive in reminding the committee about the benefits of full expansion, and I'm afraid I really don't have a compromise position at this juncture. Although whatever you all decide to consider, we'd be happy to talk about it, but I think it's time to move the ball forward.
Thank you very much, and we're trying to move it forward, just not in the same perspective you enjoy. Anyone else who would like to speak other than Senator Donovan? All right, Senator.
With respect for your time, I will move quickly. There's a few things I want to address. You know, one is I agree that everybody in an ideal world would have access to health care. I would love for everybody to have access to health care. Whether or not we need as a state to be providing health insurance as that access, I'm not entirely sure of. And I will tell you that this solution doesn't have to be all public, and that's what the Senate has brought to you this year. We have brought to you many different opportunities to buy low-cost health insurance and access in the private sector as well as the public, and I think that we can't have a conversation assuming that the public sector is going to provide the enormous amount of insurance that we're talking about providing. I will tell you, I've seen the poll that we've all seen the polls. The Hospital Association did a poll of over 600 people. I polled my district of over 900 people. Democrats and Republicans, 49% were interested in Medicaid expansion. When you ask them if that should be for chronically ill, disabled, they were very much endorsing that, but for healthy individuals, less than 26% were in favor. This is not a done conversation. I don't know of any other alternative that's come in the last couple of years since I've been here to advance this conversation about what I'm proposing today. And I very much, this is not everything I would want, but it is, but neither is Medicaid expansion. As far as the tax is concerned, I don't know. I would love a tax that I actually got back more money than I invested, and that's what the hospitals get at $42 to $43 million. So I think that's a play on words that's popular with the press, but not moving the ball towards coming up with a solution. Couple of other things that I just want to hit on that we talk about. Let's just summarize here. Medicaid expansion does not address all the needs of our vulnerable population, especially as it was expressed in the budget this year, where we had 2,300 slots, waiver slots that weren't even filled. Medicaid expansion adds full coverage for able-bodied adults. It's a hard conversation when people who are trying to purchase insurance can't afford it. It does not address 12,000 individuals currently waiting. We talked about the waiver slots. It does not address low provider reimbursement rates in Medicaid at all. It doesn't address the needs of individuals with brain injuries. Medicaid expansion does little to relieve the huge premium increases that we have in the individual marketplace. PNAP expands the current GAP program. I shouldn't read. It's not very helpful. But basically, we've talked about what it does. I will turn it over to the committee at this point in time, just with the recognition that this is really a comprehensive approach to looking at health care in Virginia.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, you have heard a number of discussions and points of perspective on this bill. It is before you. Senate
Mr.
Bill-
Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Senator Wagner.
I'm going to support this bill, and let me tell you why. I mean, we're starting to look at groups that we think ought to be also included in the Medicaid program. But as the gentlelady from the Poverty Law Center said, that somebody making $28,000, family of three, gets the full Medicaid and the full benefit of it. What about the family of three that makes $30,000? As the premiums we just talked about in the previous discussion, that family can't even afford the premiums, yet they have to go out and buy the premiums. They might get a subsidy, they might help them along, but I think we need to go through the Medicaid program. I have a hard time going back to my district and talking to my people and saying, yeah, go ahead, pay your taxes, struggle to pay your co-pays, struggle to pay your insurance, and oh, by the way, there's a group out here that wants free health care, perfectly capable of working, but just don't want to work for whatever reason. Now, I think we need to find that population, and we need to find the rest of the population, which I believe your bill is going in the right direction, to define those groups that legitimately cannot help themselves but are not yet eligible for Medicaid. But I think without a work requirement, or without job training, and that we need to focus on those groups that we think should be eligible for the Medicaid, not blanket go around and do this. Not when we had the previous discussion about this entire group out there that's having difficulty, if not impossibility, paying their health care bills, paying their co-pays, and also paying their taxes to help support this other program. I think we have a terrible disconnect in there, and I would hope that as this moves forward the process, Mr. Chairman, that we start to look at these groups that we consider functionally unable to take care of themselves for whatever reason, might derive a little bit of income or might do that, but that are eligible for the Medicaid program, but really start to look at not just a blanket thing, and those people that are perfectly capable of working, perfectly capable of improving their lot in life, make it clear to them that they need to start going down that road if we're going to incorporate them in the Medicaid program.
Any other senator have any comments? Senator Barker, yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't find this the appropriate step that we should take at this time. I think we need to go in a different direction, and I think there are potential compromises that can be made here. I think the legislation that the bill that Senator Hanger introduced this year talked about sort of starting off with Medicaid expansion, but moving immediately into doing a waiver program to address a lot of the issues that people have raised. As Senator Wagner said, one of the things we could certainly look at doing there, and you can incorporate even some of it in the straight Medicaid expansion, is to do things along the line of the work requirements and to have incentives built in there. And in reality, most of the people who are the ones who are not working at all are already covered. If they have children, they are covered at this particular time, and most of the ones that don't have children are ones who have some disabilities or other types of things. So actually, it's mostly the population that's between about 40 or 50% of the poverty level and roughly 140% of the poverty level who are working, who are making some income, but don't have enough to support themselves. I don't find this to be with all due respect to the Patriot, I don't find this to be a comprehensive approach. When we're telling 14 out of 15 people that we could provide services to in a comprehensive manner and actually save the state hundreds of millions of dollars if we did it, the way it's been developed in terms of the proposal thus far, that is a comprehensive approach. And I think we need to try to find something that gets the coverage to people, but then adjust the program to the types of things that we want in it through the waiver proposal and whatever else we need to do there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Barker. Senator Howell, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to commend Senator Donovan for her very sincere and knowledgeable and hard work, but I disagree with this approach. First of all, I think it's fiscally imprudent not to take back all the federal money we can get. We paid taxes for that. Your constituents all have been paying taxes that are going elsewhere and have been for 4 years when we could have been providing health care to Virginians. The money is going to other states that have been more fiscally responsible than we have. Also, Senator Donovan's bill only covers under 50,000 Virginians, when if we were to fully expand, it would be 375,000 Virginians with much more comprehensive insurance. I know everybody is trying to move things forward here in Virginia to get us to be a more compassionate community, but this just isn't it. Sorry.
Any other senator have any comments? Yes, sir. Senator Hanger, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate the conversation we're having now. Not actually, Senator Donovan, all due respect, not the content of your bill, but the conversation we're having, because I hopefully this conversation will continue. I'm hoping the bill won't continue because of what some of the options that it provides in it, which I think are very limiting. And here's where I'm at. And I'm not sure whether I've stated this publicly clearly or not. I've tried to, but I don't support the bed tax, the provider assessment, whether you're going for the full package of the enhanced money that we could get from Congress or whether you're going for just a little bit. In my opinion, doing this for it's going to be a lot of pain for a little gain if we impose this large a tax increase on the healthcare industry in order to channel some monies directly here, which actually, in my opinion, are not on target. The one thing I do like about this bill, and it's political, it will allow me an opportunity to ingratiate myself to the right wing of my party because they think I'm a moderate, but I'm going to vote against a tax increase today that I think inappropriate. At any rate, not to belittle where you're headed with it. You and I've had this conversation, Senator Donovan, and lots of people in the audience here. There are a couple things that, I consider this, it depends on where you draw the line, Mr. Chairman. I consider this Medicaid expansion because we are obligating ourselves in the out years to a tremendous number of people that we're going to be served, but we're going to pay for it by a program that may go away and by imposing a tax on the healthcare industry, the hospitals specifically. Now, we have to counter that, and I'm not going to go a whole lot into that. I guess I'm not going to make my full-blown argument about why I support accessing the enhanced dollars, but this doesn't do that. It just pulls out some people that all of us want to cover. We have a great opportunity here to figure out a way to get there, but this just doesn't do it. The people that we're taxing in the Commonwealth right now, based on the Affordable Care Act, and I think Republicans, I as a Republican, we own this problem now because we've not fixed, Congress has not fixed it. They basically worsened the situation by continuing to tax high-income earners in the Commonwealth, extracting billions of dollars, taking to Washington, and then we're not pulling it back. I think it inappropriate. I would support a general tax increase of $300 million before I would support a bed tax. That's where I'm at, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Newman, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Senator Hanger, and I suspect that no one's worked on this subject more than he has and runs HHR and runs it very well. I just don't see where when a company is getting $43 million more than they put in, that's a tax. So it could be called a windfall. It could be called a lot of things, but not a tax. The net. Sorry, Mr. Hanger, do you want to?
Mr. Chairman, I was just wanted, if I could ask Senator Newman a question.
Well, I'm not sure that I want to embrace a running debate on it.
Mr. Chairman, I just don't understand the $43 million because there's a tremendous amount of cost incurred in providing these services. Right. So I just didn't know where the $43 million was coming from.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I can help, and maybe that Senator Donovan can help as well. The amount of the funds that we are expending versus, which includes through the 83 cents versus 73 cents versus the amount of money we raise, according to our calculations, you'll be able to raise $43 million more than what we put in. But, Mr. Chairman, back to the point. The fact is that if you look at this bill is what we've all been talking about in HHR and otherwise for many, many years. It is an absolute wish and hope list that we would deal with the diagnosis of the mentally ill We've been talking about opioids for a long time. This bill tries to go after that population, the life-threatening complex diseases. The DD waivers, I know that almost everyone on this committee has been working desperately to try to cover those. This bill tries to do it. And while I understand it doesn't go as far as some would like, I think that the bill does allow us the opportunity to cover some of those most in need individuals that are out there. I hope that we would support the legislation.
Before I call, for a motion on this, once again, this is way over my head. But what I do believe is that this bill is certainly serving as a catalyst to have a fairly stimulated ongoing discussion, because as a poet laureate once said, we have miles to travel before this issue goes to sleep around March the 10th or so. So I do think it's good that the discussion is taking place. And I'm hopeful that perhaps there can be some constructive suggestions moving towards some form of compromise. It seems, once again, not knowing exactly what's going on, it's rather conspicuous that there are very few mentions about the insurance companies in this ongoing discussion
Mr.
on it.
Chairman.
But with that, ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 915 is before you as presented. Is there a motion?
Move to report, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 915 be reported. Is there any further discussion? If not, if you would open the roll and please note your votes. If you would report the vote, please, sir.
Ayes 10, noes 6.
Ayes 10, noes 6. Senate bill is reported. Does that complete the calendar? If not, I want to thank all of you in the audience for your attendance and your participation today, and we will look forward to continuing that dialogue.